Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today is the start of my February wrap-up vlog. So it is Sunday, February 6th, and I have finished reading 3 things so far. So I'm here today to talk about those 3 things. First off was Volume 3 of Haikyuu. This is by Haruichi Furudate, published by Viz, rated teen. This is a reread for me. It is a story about a boys' high school volleyball team, which is kind of at the bottom of the volleyball teams and is working their way back up to the top. And it follows this particular team as well as focusing on 2 particular members of the team and their journeys with volleyball. Like I said, it's a reread of mine. I've watched the animated adaptation of this series several times. It is a household favorite, and I'm really looking forward to continuing. This I am reading as part of the Fly Along with Shay Geeks Out. We're reading 1 volume a week. I am obviously behind. I should already have, I think, 5 or 6 volumes done by now. Slowly making my way through this series this year. I haven't gotten through the series one time yet. I read 30-something volumes but never finished the entire series. So I'm looking forward to doing that this year and really enjoying that. The next thing I read was City of Villains by Estelle Lore. This is the first book in the City of Villains series, and it is a Disney Villains reimagined story where we have Mary Hart, and she is a high school student, and we are in a world where magic kind of just vanishes one day, and we have the legends who are descendants of people who had magic, and they're all kind of identifiable by a marking on the inside of their wrist. And then you have the Narrows, which are the people who never had magical abilities. And so we are following Mary, who not only is a high school student and of this lineage of a family that had magic, but we're also following her in her internship at the police department. And so one day, one of her classmates, Mally, goes missing, and she is tasked by the police chief to investigate this case along with one of the other officers, who happens to be Belle. And so this story follows that investigation. Obviously, this has to do with Disney villains, so we see a lot of them here. We have not only Mary, who is the Queen of Hearts, we have Hook, we have Smee, Maleficent is actually Mally, the one that goes missing. There's Ursula, I already said Belle, but there's also Gaston. He works at the police department. And so there are a lot of identifiable villains in this kind of story. I have to admit that this story would probably have worked better for me if it didn't have to do with Disney villains. For a good portion of the beginning part of this book, I was trying to figure out who some of the people were. And it wasn't immediately identifiable because we don't get like their villain name, if you will. Sometimes it took a while for things to come up where you could say, oh, okay, this person is this. Like our main character, Mary. We don't know for sure she's Mary, Queen of Hearts until it's mentioned sometime later where she's playing some kind of arcade game that has to do with croquet. And that's where I made the connection. Obviously, I probably could have caught on that she was the Queen of Hearts just because her last name was Hart, but it's not something that like really crossed my mind. I wasn't even sure that our main character was one of the villains. And so that kind of hindered my enjoyment of this series. I also had to switch over to audiobook very early in this story because the author's writing style was not working for me. I am typically one who can read several chapters before putting the book down, and my mind was just wandering the entire time I was trying to read this book physically. And so that is why I borrowed a copy of the audiobook from Hoopla through my library, and that worked out much better for me. I was able to concentrate on the story a lot better. I don't know if it was just the author's writing style, if it was me, or some of the things that are going on in my life at the moment, but I was having a hard time concentrating on that book in particular. And so, yeah, the audiobook was great, though. I really enjoy listening to it. The story really didn't pick up for me until the very end, and that's where everything kind of came together for this particular installment and is catapulting us into the next installment, which comes out later this year. I think now that we've got all of that backstory and everything is kind of set up for us, the next book in this series will work out a lot better for me. At least that's what I'm hoping. So yeah, I'll definitely continue to the next one and see how I feel after that. Not sure how many there will be. Right now there are 3 listed on Goodreads. But yeah, this one wasn't as enjoyable as I was hoping it was going to be, but it did definitely pick up towards the end. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the next installment will bring. The last book I finished recently was Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts. This is, again, a Disney villains kind of reimagined story where we have Jafar and Jasmine in a relationship. This is not usually the type of book that I would read, but I've been hearing so many people talk about it recently that I was just like, you know what? I'm going to check it out. I've been reading a lot of Disney kind of stories lately, and so I thought now would be a good time to explore that. A lot of people seem to like it. This one was just okay for me. It was a very fast read, especially when you skim over most of the smut parts, because this book is very smutty. But yeah, it was okay. I didn't particularly like a few things that happened in this one. Some of the things that happened didn't make sense to me, but I definitely enjoyed seeing Jasmine's character growth at the very end of this one. I'm kind of sad that that only came out towards the end of the book. But yeah, I'll probably explore a few other books in this series. Like I said, it was really fast to read. I thought the author's writing style, for the most part, was very consumable. And yeah, I think she does a Greek gods series as well. I think all of her books are smutty though, so yeah, I'm exploring more types of books now, trying to expand my reading horizons, I guess. And so, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was enjoyable and a very fast read. So, yeah. Not usually the type of book you hear me talk about on this channel, but I am open to trying new types of materials this year. And so I'm glad I did dip my toe in that and finally was able to see what everybody was talking about. And so, yeah, that is everything I've read up to this point in February. I will be back with you later to tell you about the other things I have read once I've read them. Hi everyone, it is Tuesday, February 15th, and I'm here to talk about all of the things I've read since I talked to you last. So I finished Something from the Night Side by Simon R. Green. This is the first book in the Night Side series. This story follows our main character, John Taylor, who has a history with the Night Side, but he has separated himself from the Night Side and hasn't been back in a really long time, when all of a sudden he is hired by a woman to find her daughter. Now, John Taylor's ability is that he is able to find things. He is a finder. He has a gift at finding things, and so he is kind of down on his luck. He needs some money, and then he finds out that this woman thinks her daughter is in the night side. And so he has to confront his past and take this job not only for his financial purposes, but to help this woman find her daughter and face his past as well. So I liked this book. I thought it was interesting. It wasn't as mysterious as I was hoping it was going to be, but this was definitely more of just like a kind of short fantasy story, which is exactly what I was reading it for. I'm reading this as part of the Bookish Bryant's Readathon, February Fantasy Stories, where we read short fantasy books that are under 250 pages. So this was perfect. I have read something else by Simon R. Green in the past, which is one of his ghost hunter type mysteries. I'm not sure what the series is called, but I'll put the series name down here. I read one of those a very, very long time ago, and I kind of had the same feeling as I did with this book. I liked it. It just wasn't a love, I guess, I would say. I am interested to see where this series is going to go. This particular installment was very much just like following John as he reintroduces himself to the night side and how people kind of remember him, and it leaves little breadcrumbs about the fact that he does have some kind of a mysterious past there, and some of the things people are saying about him when he returns, and some of the ways they react are interesting. You don't get a lot of explanation for that, which I'm hoping is going to come in future installments. The end of this book kind of gives you a little bit more, but it still kind of leaves you up in the air. I definitely, like I said, didn't have the feeling of mystery, even though he's going to find a girl. There's like no real like mysterious element to it. It's very step by step. Here we just got this clue, let's follow up on it. And even though I enjoy stories like that, the way that it's told in here wasn't as enjoyable for me, and I was kind of disappointed. When this book ended, I was just like, wait, was that it? Like, yeah. I definitely had the feeling something was up with this story, and I got answers to that at the end of this, but I'm interested to see where the second book in this series goes, because if it's anything like this one, I don't know that it's going to be a series I'd want to continue. But with first books in a series, it's always hard because they've got to like lay down some backstory, give you a painting of the world and how things work and things like that. There is definitely something mysterious about our main character's past and his kind of family elements. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what I think in the second one and how that kind of expands on this story and this world. And so I'm hoping I'll enjoy that one a bit better. But yeah, I just liked that one. It was good. It was entertaining, but it wasn't a love. So the next 4 things I read were all things that I needed to read for my Monochrome Manga Club meeting, which is happening on Thursday. So I won't be talking about those here, but if you want to hear my thoughts on them, definitely check out my Monochrome Manga Club Series First Impressions video, which should be posted by time this video is posted. I'll link that one down in the description box below in case you want to know what I thought on all of these volumes. But I read volumes 3 and 4 of A Silent Voice by Yoshitoki Oima. I read volume 1 of Love and Heart by Chitose Kaido. And I read volume 1 of Can't Stop Cursing You. Original story by Kensuke Koba, art by Natsuko Uruma. So I read all of those volumes, and yeah, so I do have a little bit more to read for my Monochrome Manga Club meeting. But if you're interested, like I said, to hear my thoughts on any of those volumes or series, check out the link down in the description box below. So that will do it for this check-in. I will be back in a bit to share with you what I've read since now. Hi everyone, it is Sunday, February 20th, and I am here with another check-in. So I have read a couple of things since I talked to you last, but before I get into those, let me go back and talk to you about volumes 3 and 4 of A Silent Voice. I think I told you in my last clip that I was going to talk about these in the Monochrome Manga Club series First Impressions video, and that is not true. Because these aren't first in a series volumes, so I'm actually going to talk about them here. So if you remember from last month, I am continuing with this series with our club. This is a series that follows a bully and the girl that he bullied who happens to be deaf, and the aftermath of what happens from him bullying her. And then when they are teens, he wants to make amends, and so he's trying to get to know her better, and they form kind of a relationship. And it also follows him kind of reconnecting with other people from his past in these volumes. And yeah, this is not the type of story that I enjoy reading. I do think it's important for people to read this one, but it definitely has triggers for bullying, I would say. And in these volumes, I can't remember which one, there is the death of a grandparent. And for me, that was probably the thing that hit the most, because I was very close to my grandfather, and I could feel that loss in these characters, because I know what that felt like. I did lose him when I was in high school, so I was actually a little bit older than these characters, and our female character here has a younger sister, so I was a little bit older than they were, but around the same age when I lost my grandfather. And we definitely see how that loss is affecting the family, and before that, how much of a relationship, especially the younger sister, had with her grandmother. And all of that hit me really hard. Just remembering times I had with my grandfather and that loss, it, to this day, is the greatest loss I've had in my life. And you can hear that I'm getting a little bit emotional. But yeah, he's been gone for almost 25 years now, I would say. Actually, yeah, this year, in March, will be his 25 years since he's been gone. So, yeah, that part in these volumes really hit me hard. But I am still not enjoying reading this series as a whole. It's just not the type of story that I enjoy reading. I'm much more of an escapism type of reader. Don't like to read about real life situations, and this is definitely real life situation. So yeah, the manga club is enjoying reading that, so I'm glad that they are enjoying it, but they all know by now that it's not something that I am enjoying. But they also all realize that I am an escapism reader, and we've been talking about things like that as well during our meeting, and so it's been really great just discussing that series and hearing everybody's take on what's happening, what they're enjoying about it, and their real life experiences connected to things that are happening in those volumes. So yeah, so since I talked to you last, I also read my chapters of Death Note. So we read volume 2 of the Black Edition, which is actually volumes 3 and 4. And I'm really enjoying reading this one. Now, this one is real life, kind of, but there is the addition of the death gods, which kind of brings a sense of non-reality to the series, and it is a murder mystery, which is something that I enjoy reading in general. So I am enjoying this series read much more than the series read of A Silent Voice, even though I have watched adaptations of both series, but I'm looking forward to ending A Silent Voice next month because we will be completing our series read of that and continuing on with the next volume of Death Note, or at least the Black Edition, which is volumes 5 and 6, if we're talking about single editions. So the last thing that I read since I talked to you last, I just finished this last night, and that is R.L. Stine's Broken Hearts. This is a Fear Street Super Chiller. I believe this is number 4 in the Super Chillers. And this one follows a family of sisters. We have a pair of twins, and we have one that is just a couple years younger. So we start out where the twins, who are about 16 years old, are taking a friend who happens to live across the street and their younger sister, who is 14, to an equestrian center, and they're just going to go for a horseback ride, kind of a leisurely type of thing. But the older sisters and their friend are kind of going to check out the horse stable guy. So the younger sister, she's just not really feeling the horseback riding. In fact, some of the horses are making noises and reacting kind of scarily to her, so she decides that she's going to sit out. But the older sisters and their friend go out for a ride, and one of the twins gets into an accident and gets thrown from her horse. So then there's a little bit of a time skip, and the family dynamic has completely changed. And the one twin that wasn't in the accident is kind of a royal bee. The other twin that was in the accident had brain damage, and the younger sister is trying to navigate her first year in high school, but also having to basically bear the brunt of responsibility for taking care of the older sister that was in the accident, because the mom is either constantly working or out, and the dad is always on business trips. So one day, the older sister who wasn't in the accident starts to get these valentines, and they say things like, "Roses are red, corpses are blue. On Valentine's Day, you'll die too." And so she gets a few of these. Now she has a string of ex-boyfriends. She thinks she knows it might be one of them, a particular one, but is it really? Who's actually sending her these valentines? And so this story follows that kind of situation. I really, really enjoyed this. I know I've read this one before, but I didn't remember anything about it. This is the copy that I've had since I was a teen. So that is how I know that I read this one before. Nothing about the story was familiar to me though, and I went through this one really, really quick. I just really, really enjoyed reading this one. I don't know what it is. I'm not usually a Valentine's Day kind of reader. Like, I don't really read things that are about Valentine's Day or the days leading up to it. But I think the whole, who are these creepy Valentines coming from, was really the thing that made me keep reading. And so I am very happy that I read that. I read that one as part of my Flashback February Reads project, where I read books that I enjoyed when I was a teen, or from authors that I enjoyed as a teen. And R.L. Stine is definitely one of those authors. And so I'm hoping to pick up at least one more book from an author that I enjoyed in the past before the month is over. But yeah, that's everything I've read up until this point. So I'll be back with you for one more check-in before the month is over to let you know how I finished my month. Hi everyone, it is Sunday, February 27th, and I'm here to wrap up this wrap-up vlog. So since I've talked to you last, I read a few more things, so let me tell you what I've read. So first up, I listened to the audiobook of Agents of Light and Darkness. This is the second book in the Nightside series by Simon R. Green. In this one, we follow our main character, John Taylor, who, again, is a finder. His gift is to find things, and now he is working in the night side, a place where he had split from a while back, but the first book in this series brought him back there. And so now people are hiring him for his services, and he is hired to find the unholy grail. So, needless to say, and I'm sure you can tell just from the cover that this story has angels, it also has demons, and I have to say that I didn't really enjoy this one any more than I did the first one. In fact, I probably enjoyed the first book in this series better just because of some of the content that is in this one. We do get introduced to a new character who I believe is going to kind of stick with the main cast throughout this series, who has a rather hard backstory. Some of the things mentioned in her backstory are incestuous rape and late-term abortion, and I am not quite sure why we are told that, but I was very surprised when I had heard about those things in her backstory, and yeah, I don't think that I'm going to be continuing with this series. I do enjoy the world. The world is very interesting to me, but the characters and the things that our main character is doing are not very interesting to me. And these stories are so quick. Like, this one is under 250 pages, which is why I read it for February Fantasy Stories, which is hosted by the Bookish Bryants. But yeah, I think this just needed to be a bit more fleshed out, maybe? I don't know. I had the same problem with this one as I did with the first one, where I was getting pulled out of the story a lot and just kind of kept getting distracted, which means that this story didn't hold my interest. And so, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be continuing with this series. I did check to see what the next book in this series was about, and unfortunately that one doesn't sound very interesting to me, so I think this is where I'm going to cut this one. I am still interested in exploring or re-exploring Simon R. Green's Ghost Hunter mystery series. I think that's what it's called. I had listened to the first book many years ago and thought that one was interesting, but I do remember having the same issue as I was having with this one. But at the time that I was listening to that story, I did have a lot of things going on in my life and my stress level was very high. So I'm definitely going to try that one again. That series definitely seems more down my alley. But yeah, I'm glad that I checked this series out. I'm glad I participated in the Bookish Bryant's February Fantasy Stories readathon. And I'm sorry that I constantly forgot what your readathon was. I kept calling it different things and wrong things, but it's February Fantasy Stories. So I had an interesting time checking out some things that I've been meaning to pick up for a while on my shelves. These will end up going to my local little free library, so someone else can enjoy these two, or the two books that I read for that. So that's the first thing I finished. And the next thing I finished was much more enjoyable, and that was Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Sea of Monsters. This is book 2. I really enjoyed my revisit of this story, and surprisingly enough, I remembered quite a bit of what happened. So I've decided to incorporate listening to the books this time around. I had only read this series once, so when I read it the first time, I read it physically, and I wasn't really into audiobooks at the time, but I decided to go ahead and try listening to the audiobooks this time around, and I have to say that I'm really enjoying that experience. I think the narrator did an awesome job with these stories, and unlike the series that I just talked about, this series definitely keeps my interest. I remember everything that has happened, and it helped that I remembered quite a bit from when I read it several years ago. So I'm really looking forward to continuing with the third one in March, and yeah, so that was that one. And then the last thing I finished just before I turned on this camera, And that is 4 volumes of A School Frozen in Time. This one has art by Naoshi Arakawa, story by Mizuki Tsujimura. This one is published by Vertical and is rated 16 plus, which is older teen. So this will complete my last Rotating Decks TBR prompt for the month of February, and this is an entire series in these 4 volumes. So we have volume 1 here, volume 2, volume 3, and volume 4. So this series, right off the bat, starts shortly after a student at these characters that you've seen on the covers here at their school has committed suicide at the spring festival that the school was having. So just so you know, going in, this one does deal with the suicide of a student, and that student does jump off one of the school buildings. So when we meet up with the characters, they are heading to school for the first time since the school has been closed since that incident. And when they get to the school, they realize that they are the only ones there. So at first they think maybe the school was closed for a holiday, or there's something else going on and they just weren't notified. But then they become aware of the fact that they are not able to leave the school. Once they pass through the doors of the school, the doors will not open for them. And so they are trying to find a way out. And as time passes and they start talking to each other, they all remember that somebody at their school had committed suicide, but they can't remember who it was. So then it becomes clear that they need to figure that out in order for them to leave. And was it one of them who was the one that committed suicide? So I am kind of really glad that I waited until I had this whole series before I jumped in, because I think there are a lot of little things that you kind of need to be aware of to put everything together, if you know what I mean, without me spoiling things. I definitely think that if I had read these volumes as I picked them up or as they were released, I would have had an issue kind of stringing things together. So I'm really glad that I had not only all of the volumes, but the time to sit down and absorb what was going on and continue this story volume after volume after volume. I do have to say that I did figure out who it was that committed suicide before it was revealed, but this one does have a few other twists and turns that I was pleasantly surprised with. And so there were definite things in this story that caught me by surprise, which is something I definitely appreciated from this story. Obviously, because we are dealing with the suicide of a student, there are some hard topics in here. We get glimpses into each of the students that we meet in the storyline, into their backgrounds and things that they have been going through. So I do feel that helps connect you as a reader, at least it did for me, to these characters. And yeah, I thought this one was very interesting, and I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to read this series in one sitting. So that will do it for everything that I have read in the month of February. It is quite a stack, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with the things that I have read. I do have them all over here. I am a little bit unhappy with my progress for my Flashback February Reads project, which I really only read one thing. I am in the middle of another thing for that project, and I don't think that I'm going to be able to finish it by tomorrow, which is why I'm ending this wrap-up vlog here. But yeah, I did have a little bit of vacation time this month. I figured out that when I'm on vacation, I don't want to read while I'm on vacation. So I think I got through a lot more than I thought I was going to once I had come back from vacation, just because I had started off the month kind of with a book that I never finished throughout the month. I am still reading it. So that's 2 books that I'm going to be carrying over to the month of March. But thankfully, they're both mysteries and they will fit for March Mystery Madness. But going back to my previous point, I have been languishing over one book for the last 3 weeks. So that kind of didn't help. I finally gave myself permission to put that one down and read something else. And that really did help, because since then I read 8 other things. So yeah, that one book, which I'll tell you right now is Velocity, the 3rd book in the Karen Vale Mystery Series by Alan Jacobson. I am still struggling through. And it's not because I'm not enjoying it. I am finding it interesting, but it just feels like it's dragging. So yeah, you'll hear me talk more about it in next month's wrap-up vlog, because I'm sure I will finish it in March. If I don't, there's definitely something wrong. But yeah, that's all I've got for you for the month of February. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of the things that I have talked about in this video and what you thought of them. If nothing else, if you could like this video and leave me a 4-leaf clover emoji, because I will need all the luck that I can get for all of the reads that I have planned for March. And that will do it for me today. So I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.